all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. And finally, PuroClean. PuroClean is the paramedics of property damage. It provides water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold removal, biohazard cleanup. It also has a focus on veteran franchisees. You can learn more about them by going to puroclean.com. We just want to remind you that Veterans Radio podcasts are available on all your favorite streaming platforms, including rss.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Rees Across America Radio. So wherever you are, you can find us, whether it's on your mobile phone or your computer or your laptop, your tablet. But listen in to Veterans Radio Podcast. We post something new every week, and you're going to find it informative. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Medal of Honor recipient Ken David. He received the medal in January of 2025 from President Biden for his activities in Vietnam in May 7th of 1970 near Fire Support Base Marine. Ken, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, we're glad to have you on and talk a little bit about your service and certainly the significance and, if you will, weight and responsibility of being a Medal of Honor recipient. Let me back this up and explain it a little bit to some folks. Ken David was drafted into the Army in August of 1969. He served primarily as a radio telephone operator with the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam. However, once you get in a firefight, it's every man's got to grab a gun and a rifle and do what needs to be done. What happened on this day near Fire Support Base Marine was an ambush early in the morning on May 7th. As many as 300 enemy fighters zeroed in on Company D's 50 or 60 soldiers, and your platoon leader was killed almost immediately. A number of other folks were in the leadership structure were wounded, and you had to hand off the radio and move to a defensive perimeter firing at the enemy, and you were recognized. Although wounded, you had repeatedly exposed yourself to enemy fire, directing fire from the enemy and also trying to direct where your comrades were supposed to be firing. So one hellish day on May 7th, 1970, and I'm not doing it justice, but do you want to reflect a little bit on that, Ken?
Sure. We went in on a company assault on May 5th, and after 6 helicopters landed, enemy opened fire and popped red smoke, and the other 18 or so helicopters veered away until we secured the mountaintop. Then they came in, and Next day, we did a search around the base, and everything was calm. And then the morning of May 7th, sappers come after us, which is like their enemy special forces. And I just did a radio check with the guys. We don't talk. We just on the hour, it was certain clicks on the radio because it was so quiet in the jungle. And I just had a good radio check from the other squads. And right after that, everything broke loose. And not knowing I was the only one left alive that could still fight, even though I was wounded and didn't know I was wounded, I did what I was trained to do. And one point when I came to, I was knocked out for quite a while. That was eyeball to eyeball with them. And I just did what I had to do. And then finally, one of the guys from the rear, Greg, he come up to support me, and he got shot. And when daylight came, the other platoon that was down at the base of the mountain got ambushed coming up to try to help us. Finally, they made it. And you just, when you're 20 years old and fighting for your life, you do things you don't even know you're wounded. The adrenaline was pumping so high. Then afterwards, that was when I said, ouch. That's when I realized I was hurt.
That's an understatement, ouch.
Ouch. And my eardrums are blown out. My jungler shirt looked like a screen from RPG shrapnel behind us. My back was full of shrapnel. They put like a field dressing on, which is probably 2 foot by 2 foot over on my back. I remember that. And out of the 18 of us in second platoon that was on the mountain, there was 14 Purple Hearts, 7 killed in action. And I was able to save some of the guys.
Yeah, this is one of those, you were a 20-year-old kid. You were doing what you needed to do to save yourself and the men around you. You were private first class, while others needed to be rescued. Somebody had to keep up the fight, and you kept fighting during this. You ultimately received the Distinguished Service Cross for your actions. That was awarded in 1971, and now we come to 2025, and that DSC medal gets upgraded to the Medal of Honor, which is the highest award granted for valor in combat. I want to talk a little bit about the journey from having the DSC to the Medal of Honor, but I want to point out to everybody, you're I hope you don't mind this. I offer this as a compliment. You're a regular guy.
Yes.
You're not a superhero.
No.
You were an Eagle Scout, which tells us a lot about your character right there in early years that you went through and got your Eagle Scout. And you're now retired from York Mahoning Mechanical. You're an HVAC worker as your career. I mean, I think we sometimes think about the men who are so courageous in these situations. Well, they must be superheroes. Did you ever think you were a superhero?
Never. No, I was just that Catholic boy that was raised up proper by mom and dad, and I was fighting to save the rest of the people behind me, not knowing 7 were already killed and another 7 had arms and legs blown off that I found out later. And no, I just did what I was trained. Like I tell people back here, those that slept in class during training were the ones that did not come home. Because when the stuff gets real out in the jungle in a zone, knowing you're the only people out there, you got to know what to do and always be prepared to do.
this was one of these battles, little battles, in the big picture of the war thing, but not little to you. And there was another Medal of Honor recipient that day in that battle, Ken Kays, I believe his name is. He received the Medal of Honor. He was a medic who worked through all of that chaos on that day. But I want to go back to this idea of highest praise I can give you is you're a regular guy, which means a lot to me. And part of that is you really struggled when you came back, as so many guys from Iraq and Afghanistan are finding after Afghanistan's 20-year war. It's hard to come back and integrate into society and leave all that horror that you've seen behind. And you had your challenges, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I had a lot of challenges. Got medevac to Japan for a week, and then from there they sent me back home to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania for 5 months. And when I got out of the hospital, they sent me right back to active duty. I had no time to decompress, no time. Nobody would talk about nothing, which nowadays it's all changed with their procedures and so forth, which is better for them. And I would tell the people, the ones that died on the battlefield were the lucky ones. They didn't have the nightmares. They didn't have getting up, checking all the doors at night a couple times. You're still walking perimeter. You're still doing a lot of things that you did because nobody deprogrammed you, if that makes any sense to the listener.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, again, this is something a lot of guys are going to be able to relate to, is that, hey, even somebody who did something as heroic as to have been entitled to be a recipient of the Medal of Honor can come home with post-traumatic stress that back then nobody talked about, and you just had to suffer your way and struggle your way through it with your family, ultimately with your job and everything. Much better today, but not good enough from the VA standpoint. And it took you a while, as I'm reading your story, you found comfort, you found a home with the local Disabled American Veterans, DAV, I think. Am I right in reading that?
Yes, correct. Yeah, Chapter 11 in Ohio. We got a good chapter. I get between 35 and 40 members to a meeting, and we have a meeting and discuss things and, vote on things. And the membership is very active. We started up a rifle team to give full honors to veterans that couldn't get a rifle team together, because they're busy or whatever. But the guys, the members and my officers, they're very attentive. They'll do what I ask to do, and it keeps me busy and it keeps my mind going, because I don't want the younger veterans coming up going through what I had to go through. It took them almost 50 years to put me on nightmare medicine. So that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's easy to look at a guy like you with that medal and blue ribbon around your neck and say, well, he came out fine. Everything was just hunky-dory. He didn't have any problems. And again, part of the reason we're talking to Medal of Honor recipients, veteran radio listeners, is for you to understand these are regular guys with regular problems when they come back that they have to work their way through. Yeah, they got this high award ultimately, but whether it's working with the civilian population that doesn't understand, or the VA population which doesn't seem to understand, it's a lot of work, and that's something you had to work your way through. What helped the most, do you think?
Well, my classmates all went to college, so they were getting tear gassed in the 70s down at Ohio State. And I was getting shot at halfway around the world. And when I came back home, nobody wanted to hear my stories. So I dug a foxhole in my mind, and every day I would put another sandbag on top, and until I couldn't climb out of my foxhole anymore, and that's when I reached out for help.
And where did that help come from, Ken?
It came from the VA outsourced me to a counselor, and it took him 6 months, once a week, to make me cry because that emotion was not in my system. So I didn't cry for 15 some years. And when I started crying, I couldn't stop, so he had to cancel his next 2 appointments. And shortly after that, I took my family and my 2 boys, who were like 5 and 7, and we took a bus trip to the wall. And I told my foxhole buddies, I can't carry him on my back no more. And I said goodbye to him, but I'll always remember him. And I have a book in my truck I carry all the time with the virtual wall with their pictures and the date they deceased. And I'll always remember them. And that's one of the reasons I'll wear the medal with pride, is to honor them that didn't come home and the ones that really got hurt and lost limbs.
And that probably was very cathartic to go to the wall and sort of release that burden. Because I saw where you said in a recent DAV magazine article, quote, "The government took my smile away," close quote. And that really hit me. I mean, that was something that you really struggled with, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I never smiled. My whole family and aunts and uncles thought I was mad at the whole world, and until they actually sat down and talked to me face to face. But no, there was nothing to smile about when I came home. It just was hard to adjust, and it was just very, very hard. So.
One of the things that I'm always interested in, because it's such a small, unique club, the recipients of the Medal of Honor.
I was number 61, living right now.
See, that's a small club. There's both a burden and an obligation when you get this recognition. Now, you've only been wearing it for 5 months or something now, but talk to us a little bit about how you feel as it relates to both that responsibility and obligation to be a Medal of Honor recipient.
Like I told the Pentagon, I was on a conference call with many people. I said, it's not me to wear that. I feel like I'm bragging and showing off. And they jumped deep into my personality and told me, no, it's like you are American royalty. Wear it with pride and honor. Shut up and smile. I said, okay.
Another order. You thought at 75 they'd stop issuing you orders, or still giving you orders?
Yes. Yeah, they told me never to disrespect it, never wear it with a T-shirt, and I wear it with pride to honor the ones, the 7 that got killed that night, the one that committed suicide in the 90s, and the 20 others, some people that died after me.
One of the opportunities that a recipient has is to talk to a lot of groups, and we certainly appreciate Ken David from Trumbull County, Ohio, talking to Veterans Radio today. But I know you recently had a chance to talk to some school kids, and that may be the greatest use of your time, educating the youth about what honor and valor and courage and duty means. Talk to us a bit about those encounters with the school kids and maybe the questions they ask. I hope they're at least as insightful as the ones I'm asking, but I don't know. I could probably be beat out by a fifth grader. Tell us about your student discussions.
My last one was eighth graders. I'm sorry, it's fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders at St. Rose School in Girard, and they were very attentive. They asked me very adult questions like, what was the president like when you met him? What was the White House like? Very down to earth, and I answered them the best I could. I went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I talked to my 7-year-old grandson, first grade class. There again, they were very attentive. And I was just up there this past weekend for my granddaughter's wedding, and my son gave me a big folder with pictures and thank you from all the children in the class. So I'll put that in my scrapbook. I talked last fall before Veterans Day to the Austintown Fitch Choir, and they invited me back after I received the medal to explain all the news stories I've had, and it's been a whirlwind of meeting people, and I never saw so many four-star generals, but talking to the kids, and their eyes are open, and they're very, very smart generation coming up with the young ones.
Well, and I know some of the advice you've been recorded as telling them is to say, hey, no is not in your vocabulary, and that they should do the best they can in life and never give up on anything they choose to do, to be strong and faithful to their brothers and sisters. Those are powerful messages. Are they paying attention when you tell them?
Yes. And then last Saturday, I talked to the base commander at Camp Garfield up in here, Urbana, where they do National Guard training. And I spoke to the base commander and roughly 30 people on his staff. And they didn't want no speech from me. They asked me questions for an hour. And the things I would say, the colonel, which is base commander, would say, see, I'm telling you guys the same thing that he's repeating. They want to know better ways of training and things to do and so forth. So, but it's, I've been busy, yes.
I want to close out here. We got a few more minutes. I want to talk, though, because what most folks don't understand is that a Medal of Honor recipient such as yourself does not self-promote seeking the Medal of Honor. It is a very complicated, rigorous process that goes through, in this instance, it would go up through the Army, ultimately getting to the president's desk. And you have to have somebody who's determined to get the package put together right and forwarded and follow up on it and use some political connections so that it gets reviewed properly. And I want you to talk about two of those guys. I kind of refer to them as Medal of Honor Sherpas. They're the guys who have to carry the package, that heavy package up the hill. Sam Lanza and Herm Brewer. Talk to us about these two buddies of yours.
Sam Lanza was our adjutant from the beginning of time up here for our chapter, and he started the ball rolling. And then he told Herm Brewer, so Herm got a hold of the packet, went through my file, and says, wait a minute, this is better than the Distinguished Service Cross. So he started working on it, and he got the packet together and submitted it to the Pentagon. Took 15 years to go through the Pentagon. With his determination, he never gave up. He just kept fighting. My congressman said, Herm, you got to do the paperwork. He got Herm in a lot of the archives in D.C. that ordinary people can't get into. And the paperwork was all there. and all the committees and subcommittees within the Pentagon approved everything. And the Secretary of Defense had it for, I believe, 2 days, walked it over to the White House and said, this has to be done. And before President Joe retired from his term of presidency, I got it on January 3rd.
It's also one of those things that has to be a chilling phone call when you get a phone call and says, please hold for the President of the United States. Tell people how you got notified that this ultimately got worked through and you were going to get the upgrade to the Medal of Honor.
Well, Paula from the Pentagon kept calling me, yeah, it's going to happen, and we're trying to set a date. And, it was supposed to have been in September, October, November, December. And finally she called and said, are you going to be home tonight? I says, why? Somebody from the DOD is going to call you between noon and 4. I said, okay. And then she called me at 3:30 and said, are you going to be home between 4 to 6? I says, okay. Who's calling? Somebody from the DOD. I said, okay. So at 4:30 on Halloween night, I get a phone call. This is so-and-so, the switchboard of the White House. Would you accept a call from President Joe Biden? And I had a pad, pencil, a tape recorder. I wanted to record it. And when President Joe got on the phone and says, is this Mr. Ken David? I said, yes, it is. And I was like a deer in headlights.
All that preparation went out the window.
I didn't even think about pushing the button. My main concern was talking politely on the phone to the President of the United States, who called me on my cell phone. And we chit-chatted for 10 minutes, and he said, somebody from my staff will call you. And 30 minutes later, I had a phone call. And 30 minutes after that, I had a different phone call. And then they had to set the date. And I was supposed to have been in Washington, D.C. for 5 days. We spent New Year's Eve and New Year's Day in Washington. And then it snowed, and we spent, instead of 5, 9 days in D.C. So New Year's Eve, my escort, who came to my house to pick me up, take me to the Cleveland airport, take me to D.C., and he had orders not to lose sight of me in public. Every time I snuck away to the bathroom, he would go nuts looking for me. And New Year's Eve, he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, 9 o'clock at night. What can we do in Washington? He says, you want to go to the Tomb of the Unknown? So we got 2 cars and went to the Tomb of the Unknown and pulled up to the gate, which was Arlington was closed. And the guard opened the gate, and we had an escort to the tomb, and we were outside, and then they took us into the barracks where the squad for the unknown for that day was working, and had a tour, and went back out, then went back in, and then New Year's Day we went over to Fort Myers, and we shot flint loaded muskets from the Civil War.
Oh, pretty cool.
So they kept us busy. They kept us busy, and they honored us. And I'm not used to all that fancy stuff, open doors and this and that. But I have to learn to accept it, because I'm not ordinary Ken no more. I'm somebody with a little prestige that people honor, and I have to dress and act the part, if that makes any sense.
It does. And as you said earlier, you're not wearing this for yourself.
No.
You're wearing it for the guys who were in the battle with you, the guys in Vietnam who didn't come home. You're doing it as an ambassador to tell others the story so the history doesn't get lost, the sacrifices don't get lost. That's a pretty heavy weight, Ken, to wear, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I've been corrected on my verbiage at the Pentagon in different interviews. I can't say that because it's racial, and I can't say that because it's discrimination. So I have to learn how to speak like a speaker.
Well, you've never been the public image or public persona that you now have because of the medal. And as I said, most guys we get to talk to, they've been wearing it for years. We're very fortunate and very happy to talk to you, Ken, even though it's just 5 months into this. And we'll probably have that catch up later on. But I want to thank you for the time that you've given to Veterans Radio today so that we all can get a kind of look inside Ken David, his time in Vietnam, his time afterwards, and sort of the whole process of having the DSC upgraded to the Medal of Honor. So, Ken, thanks for the time today.
Well, thank you very much, sir. And I hope people out there listening can learn and never give up. If you think you got it bad, call me. I'll tell you how bad it really was. You just got to keep fighting. The day you sit in that chair and give up, you're done. You're done.
We want to give you a little advance notice. We're going to have a Veterans Radio event on Sunday, September 28th, 2025. Radio on the River. We're doing a new location on Freedom River in Livingston County, Michigan. We want you to save the date. We're going to have veteran storytelling and guest speakers. We'll have raffle items, great local musicians and food. Also, uniquely, there's going to be an opportunity to fly in a UH-1 Huey from the Michigan Flight Museum. And maybe you can also win a free ride that way. But plan on supporting Veterans Radio either by buying tickets or sponsoring. Radio on the River. Contact us at dale@veteransradio.org or jim@veteransradio.org to get more information. But we'd love to have you come out, and we'd certainly love to have you sponsor. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, Legal Help for Veterans, a veterans disability law firm with a national practice before the VA, can help you on your claims and your appeals. It can be reached at legalhelpforveterans.com or 1-800-693-4800. And PuroClean, a leader in property emergency services. It's the paramedics of property damage, providing water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold and biohazard cleanups. You can reach them at puroclean.com or 800-775-7876. We also want to thank our local sponsors. This would include the Charles S. Kettles chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, that's chapter 310, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423, the American Legion Irwin Preskin Post 46 in Ann Arbor as well, the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System, and certainly the National Vietnam Veterans of America Association. You can be a sponsor by going to veteransradio.org, clicking on the About Us and our sponsors, and help us out. Keep this program alive for the 21 and 22 years. Keep us going for another 20. Thank you.